All right, so what we're going to do in this video is compare these controls, the principles of these controls, with what we looked at on the Novation base station. What we know is that sound is going to come from oscillators, and we have different wave shapes. We've got a sine wave, triangle wave, sawtooth wave, and square wave. On the MXR bass synth, we only have a triangle wave, sawtooth wave, and a square wave. Those are the only ones we have. Those are selected here. Now, if it's on orange, we have a sawtooth wave, and it sounds buzzy like a saw. Like we said before on the Novation, it's got that raw, edgy sound. Now it's red. Now we're on a square wave. The square wave is a little more, is a bit more edgy than the sawtooth wave. Let's go to the triangle wave. The triangle wave is going to be closer to the sine wave. Sine wave, remember, is, fluffy. I called it fluffy in one of the videos. But the triangle wave is a little fluffy with some edge on it. Remember, you got to find vocabulary to describe the sounds. That's the vocabulary I have. So that is like one oscillator. On the Novation, there's two oscillators. Some synthesizers have 3 or 4 oscillators. Here, we're dealing with one oscillator, technically, but check this out. If I hit voice, the voice gives us an additional layers that act as a second oscillator. Okay? So that's where our sound is starting from. All right? Now, let's go from the mix knob. The mix knob, as you might expect, is going to mix the dry signal and the synth. But understand that when you turn that all the way to the left, it is not turning the effect off. You're not turning the effect off. Only that switch is going to do that. So, and just so you know, I'm playing a Yamaha BB734 at the moment in passive mode. Okay? So, let's turn that back on. The submix could be thought about in the same way as our sub-oscillator on the Novation. I'm going to turn it all the way off. Now, I'm going to exaggerate it the same way I did with the Novation. That sub-oscillator is something that, in my opinion, is more felt than heard. And once you start hearing it, in my opinion, you have kind of overdone it a bit, right? Cut off, the same as our frequency knob on the Novation. Hear how we put a little bit of hair on that? And when we turn it all the way to the left, we've cut off some frequencies. So it got really tubby and really hard to discern. So let's get in that area. Resonance. I'm going to exaggerate it and turn all the way to the right. Just like seasoning. You don't want too much. That gives it that squawk, a little bit of a little vocal quality to it as well. We can turn that down. turn that all the way off if we want. And you can see how this affects different sounds, different wave shapes. We're dealing with the raw sounds right out of the box. Let's add that other oscillator in there. If I want to turn that mix knob all the way to the right. Now you're hearing a little bit of my bass through the microphone, but what's coming out, I'm going to turn the microphone down and you'll hear the difference. So that's going to mix in just a little bit of the dry signal in there. Again, turning it all the way to the left does not turn it off. Let's look at the mod. I'm going to turn it all the way down. And I'm going to turn it all the way up. Watch what happens. This is like your LFO on a synth. You hear that wobble? If we open up that frequency, we can hear a little bit better. Now we can change the amount. You're going to look at that in a different video. And we'll also look at envelope as well. We're going to look at that when we look at the secondary layer of controls. One thing I want to mention, let me go to, if I turn, let's say I turn all these knobs, right? I just twist them and I go to a preset. Just because I twisted them that is not, the knobs are not reflective of the state because that is saved. Okay. So if I start messing with it now, I'll change the character of that sound. Now I'm going to give you a hint here. You see where that is red? So that means that we're on a square tooth, not a square tooth, a square wave. So that lets me know that the square wave is the basis of that sound. Okay? And we'll look at that when we start cooking up stuff. But that's the basis of that sound. All right? Now, if I haven't saved that at all, so if I move to the next preset, and I go back, let's go all the way back to that preset. It hasn't changed. Okay? So keep that in mind. In the next video, we're going to look at the first secondary layer. Okay? I'll see you over there.